Hello everyone, my name is Mehnaz and I head the undergraduate services at the Red Pen. And today I'm joined with Paul here today from Tulane. And thank you so much, Paul, for being here.
It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for hosting us.
Lovely. Paul, we've been in conversation with Tulane, Notre Dame and Wake Forest for the last couple of weeks. And we've been exchanging so many emails and phone calls, and it's lovely to finally have you here. I think I'd really like to start a conversation today with, you giving us a little bit of an understanding of the ideal sort of candidate that you're looking at. Traditionally, I think, students are typically evaluated on their data, but I feel like the pandemic has kind of changed things a little bit, and I'm sure you've seen that there's been a dip in the academics and a few students. And would you say that academics is still the sort of biggest metric that you use to evaluate an applicant?
Yes, absolutely. So academics remains the most important and integral piece of an applicant's evaluation, but I think the keynote is that we have far more applicants who are academically qualified than we have space. So this is when other factors and contextual pieces become much more important. I like to characterize the application process in terms of almost athletic hurdles. Think of running across a track in the Olympics. And so it's not a high jump where students need to have the absolute highest achievement in every single area to get over one single rail. It's about continuously passing successive hurdles. So the first hurdle would be the academic piece. Now, a student can cross the academic hurdle with absolute perfect predicted on the IB, with outstanding internal marks in their high school, with testing, and they can go far over a hurdle and land on the other side. But similarly, a student can cross that first hurdle with maybe something of a predicted in the high 30s in the IB, mid to high 90s in terms of predicted in a national curriculum, and without taking testing at all. So they kind of just got over the hurdle. The point is to illustrate that there are more hurdles beyond that. And so having the highest score, highest predicted grade doesn't necessarily get you over the successive hurdles. So these are when much more contextual pieces come into play. For example, a student's extracurricular and co-curricular activities, certainly their writing, letters of recommendation, and maybe more unique to Tulane in this aspect would be the piece of demonstrated interest in our university.
So that's something that you really take into context when you're evaluating a student?
Yes, I like to joke that universities are vain. We love students that love us. And so we like to see not necessarily just a love letter to us, but we like to know that a student is informed and researched about what we offer. Some of our programs and our campus experience is quite unique and not suited to every student. And so we like to see that a student has done their research and can confidently say, yes, this is the right place for me. I know that social service needs to be a part of my curricular components as well. I love the culture and history of New Orleans, and I'm so outgoing. I'm really looking forward to coming to your campus. So those pieces all play in.
Lovely. Another thing that I think a lot of students have been asking us is this whole controversy about test optional and students not being required to submit their standardized test scores any longer. Have you, in the last couple of years, actually only really seen students submitting higher test scores, and is that the way that you're seeing the applications coming in?
Yeah, great question. Tulane was test optional for international students even prior to the sort of COVID regulations that came out of many schools. So we haven't had that majority of our students submitting SAT or ACT for several years now. For us, we don't feel we have to have that as a part of the curricular evaluation for a student. We feel we can make assessments based on their internal marks, maybe predicted grades, and then letters of recommendation. If a student chooses to send a test score, certainly fine, that's great. And so I do think you're right. Most students are choosing to send the higher scores that they feel really highlight their achievements, and the sort of traditional mid-range scores, students are maybe a little shy to send. But for Tulane, it makes no difference to us in your application if you send a test score or not. Essentially, students have the agency to decide how we evaluate them academically. We can do your academic evaluation purely with a transcript, contextualized by letters of recommendation, or we can do your academic evaluation with a test score and a transcript and LORs, and it makes no difference to us how a student chooses to be evaluated.
Lovely. I think students, for you, I think this is going to be really great news because over the last couple of years, what we've been hearing from a lot of admissions officers and what we've actually seen having transpired is that the students who actually submitted their standardized test scores were the ones that were actually eventually successful at some of these selective colleges. So this is really nice, I think, for students who are really getting antsy that they haven't taken their tests, and Tulane could definitely be evaluating them on other factors as well.
Yes.
So I think that's very comforting.
More than 50% of our admitted international students did not submit testing. So I can put that data point out there too.
Yeah, lovely, lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Again, going back to your, this description about extracurricular activities and how that plays a big role as well in the whole holistic evaluation of the applicant. Now, more often than not, we have students coming to us and telling us that, am I supposed to be doing community service? Am I supposed to be doing research? And we more often than not go back and tell them that, there isn't really a checklist as such that you need to, mark off everything that you've done. It's more about what you're passionate about. And I just love to hear your thoughts on that. Is there a particular extracurricular that you would like to see on an applicant's common application form?
Yeah, great question. In terms of extracurriculars, the big reason for the evaluation is that many universities function as their own miniature cities, and in some ways their own miniature utopia. We have our own housing, dining, power plants, postal office, our own postal code. And so we get to pick and choose individual personalities, traits, characteristics to build what we think is the most supportive and engaging student body overall. So in that way, there is no one activity we like to see, because if we see too much of one thing, we're going to need to look to diversify and pull others. So that's why social service is wonderful if a student's passionate about it, but we don't need to see that from every student because it's not necessarily the diversity that we're looking for to totally fill our class. I think that is a common undertone of Tulane students though, whether it's pure social service or an interest in how their academic study plays out in shaping the real world around them. So moving beyond the theoretical and more into practical application of study, that's certainly big for our students, but no one activity. I joke, I was the captain of Tulane's equestrian team. So yes, I love to see a student that's interested in that hobby, but I frequently do have to click deny on their application because that's not actually factoring in for every student.
Awesome, awesome. Another thing that I think is at the center of our high school students' conversations over the last few weeks. The Common Application is live now, and everyone's kind of putting pen to paper with their essays. So, a little bit of context in terms of how important essays are in your evaluation process.
Mm-hmm. So we do like to see a writing sample from students, and the Common App essay is kind of the largest sample of writing we do receive from a student. It helps characterize their personality rather than an expectation to be a summary of a resume. This is really where we're getting into aspects of the individual once more. So that certainly occupies an important piece of the application. But I would say sitting just above that in terms of importance in writing is actually Tulane's supplemental statement. So where we ask students, why are you interested in applying to Tulane? Keep in mind, you write one Common App for every university that you apply to. They receive the same thing.
Right.
Your supplements are individualized, and so naturally, I think there's a little bit of preference towards that.
And your supplements are optional as well, right?
They are technically
yeah.
optional.
That's what I wanted you to touch upon, because we have so many students coming back and saying, it's optional. Do you really think we need to tackle that? And, should I move on to the next college? So a little bit of insight from you on that would really help.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is optional, I suppose, much in the same way that for the Common App essay, a student could write just one sentence and be done with it.
Right.
We leave it optional because we look to see for students who really are passionate about our university. I think many students have become familiar with how competitive Tulane is, a 9% admission rate. But I do often characterize that by saying, because we have no application fee, many students choose to apply. And so making the supplements optional are a way to start to weed out who's really interested and who is maybe just throwing in one more common application. So we look to see students who have done their research. I think that a supplement can go one of two ways. You can move towards the highly technical side of things and write some synopses of classes we offer, professor's research, who seems intriguing to students, but it can also take a much lighter tone and talk more about the social side of things and how you love New Orleans festivals and Mardi Gras, and the fact that it's a traditional campus within the city, the fact that we have Top Chef style test kitchens in our dorms, right? So all of these sort of pieces that you wouldn't really know from Wikipedia. You would have to start following us on social media, doing some of our virtual sessions. That's what we look for.
New Orleans is such a vibrant city. I think that's definitely something on my bucket list, and I'm looking forward to coming there anytime soon.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, lovely. I think another thing that I would love for you to talk about is your merit-based scholarships. And I know Tulane in the past has been really generous. And in fact, I was just talking to you about, a friend whose son is graduated from Tulane, and I think he was also on a scholarship, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
He was, right? So, so if you could just talk to us about, the merit-based scholarships, and again, what kind of a student would be successful at kind of getting this scholarship?
Yes, absolutely. So I think Tulane is known for offering a generous amount of merit scholarship to our high-achieving students. And as it turns out, there are many high-achieving students, especially in the Mumbai area, I would say that. So we do have a great deal of large scholarship recipients from this area, whether it's national curriculum or IB. For students who tend to sit in the top 10% of our pool based on a transcript evaluation, testing, if they send it, right? No pressure.
No pressure.
Students are automatically considered for awards up to about half the cost of tuition, or $30,000 per year.
But you need to apply early, right?
Early action, yes. Right. So non-binding early action is the best round to be fully considered for merit awards. And now, in addition to those half tuition scholarships, we do have full tuition awards as well. Those require an additional scholarship. And so that student we spoke about put together a wonderful application for one of those scholarships. Now, this could be creative-based, essay-based, interview-based, video-based. There are several to apply to. And this is just a lesson to students to stay organized in the process and be organized early, because you'll start to miss those deadlines.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more there, Paul. Absolutely. That's something that we're constantly stressing and talking to our students. That's so important to plan a roadmap, make sure that you're getting things done, crossing the T's and dotting the I's in the most rightful manner. So thank you so much for shedding some more light on how important the essays are in the application process. I think to kind of end a conversation, it'd be really nice if you could give us a little bit of context about the city of New Orleans, where Tulane is placed. I know that you're in the center of the city, and of course there's a lot going on with Mardi Gras and the lovely food and everything, but it'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful city. I honestly think that we are rivaled in terms of number of festivals only by India. So there are some parallels there and celebrations in the city. Our campus dates to the early 1800s. It's beautiful with traditional quads, historic buildings, housing, dining, athletic facilities. I mentioned the swimming pool, but a 30,000 seat football stadium.
Oh, wow.
And all of that sits within the city of New Orleans, and the front of campus is on the main metro line, or the tram line as we might call it. You're just about 6 kilometers from the downtown area, but you're still walking distance to wonderful restaurants, music venues. You know that Tulane is the birthplace of jazz, so certainly music plays into that cultural experience in the city. And so for us, we think it's the best of both worlds. You can be on campus surrounded by buildings and academia and really not know that you're in a city, and then step just 1 foot off campus and have access to all these wonderful sort of cosmopolitan resources.
I think another thing that I would like to end our conversation today is if you could shed some light on your ideal candidate that you're looking at, if there is one that you can talk about.
So students, of course, have a diversity of interests and backgrounds and passions, but I think there are some parallel strains that really do run through in all Tulane students. I think there's a sense of adventure and an outgoing student, because 90% of our students come from out of state or outside of the US, and the majority are actually the only person from their high school to come to Tulane. So whether you're from Mumbai or you're from Chicago, you probably won't know anyone else coming to campus. So you have to be outgoing and social.
Absolutely.
I think additionally in that there is this passion for giving back to the community, seeing the practical side of your studies and how, for example, a student within finance can help a not-for-profit manage their endowment and maximize returns, or an engineering student to work on restoration projects for infrastructure and historic structures around the city. So there's definitely that passion for being an active member of your community.
Super, thank you so much.